Welcome back to your latest industry recap. It's the end of an era for the Lufthansa Airbus A340. Aircraft have been sold, and some weird 787 flights. Want to begin there with the Boeing 787 making headlines in the last couple of weeks for upcoming flights to be operated by ZIPAIR. The Japanese carrier will launch a limited charter flight between Tokyo Narita and Orlando International Airport in Florida. However, it is not seasonal or a year-round service. For Florida, this still does represent an important milestone, given that there are no non-stop flights from anywhere in the state to Japan, meaning all current connections must take place through a stopover. ZIPAIR, however, will change that, albeit temporarily, with service in early 2026 to be operated by its 787 Dreamliner between Tokyo Narita and Orlando. The route, which comes in at just shy of 12,000 kilometers, will not be operated 4 times a week, but rather 4 times in total. That's right, this weird route pairing will see flights depart on February 23, February 28, March 5, and March 10 of 2026, with a 787-8 selected for the missions. For ZIPAIR and Florida, the purpose of the 4 flights has been made clear, and I'll get into a little bit more of why later. At this point, the details on the schedule have not been publicly confirmed, and seat sales have not yet gone live, but ZIPAIR has at the very least promised that the charter service will take place through a public announcement. So, for ZIPAIR to be offering such a flight on such a short-term basis means that there must be some kind of motive, as it stretches the legs of the 787 product and is a peculiar decision for just 4 flights. Well, for the CEO of the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority, this new partnership with ZIPAIR and the route operated by the Dreamliner is history-making. It marks the first ever non-stop passenger flight between the Asia Pacific and state of Florida from the company, and ZIPAIR calls the route a proud moment in its own history, recognizing that Orlando is home to world-class theme parks and activities, so it therefore has strong demand that the company has not yet acted on. The vision for these 787 flights are also very clear. ZIPAIR and the state of Florida want the 4 charter flights to highlight what the future could look like and lay the pivotal groundwork to make the non-stop connection routine. While ZIPAIR has the honor of making the route possible initially, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll be the Japanese airline to make it a reality across the long term. It may not even be a Japanese airline full stop. What hope remains is that the service hype, the performance, and the attention therefore placed on these 4 charter flights will show that there is a market present for an airline to swoop in and offer regular scheduled passenger flights. Moves such as these, considered long-term investments, are not uncommon. Trial periods for airlines in specific markets are frequent, and they allow businesses to scope out demand and whether a routine's frequency would make sense on a permanent basis, or even if it was just seasonally. Over to the next story, and JetBlue is saying farewell to more of its Embraer E190s as part of a recent announcement in a third quarter filing. The carrier, which you may recall retired its E190s now only a couple of months ago, is in the process of reshaping its fleet, and with that, transitioning towards strictly flying Airbus aircraft. The US carrier said that it was able to sell 12 of its remaining E190 aircraft, which have been on the ground since their retirement, and this aligns with an initiative known as Jet Forward. Jet Forward is a broader business effort to turn around the airline with a strong focus on improving financial performance to return to long-term profitability. JetBlue has noticed more than ever the operational discomfort felt over the past few years, driven by unfavorable market conditions, where as a result, the airline now is being forced to make necessary changes to put it in good order for the future. Despite this, during the third quarter reporting, the airline still published a loss, but it was smaller than expected as it did improve revenue and made changes to business to limit outgoings. The loss still coming in at $143 million. This is an increase from the same period 1 year prior, but follows an intense period of reshuffling the day-to-day operations with notable capacity cuts on routes that were bleeding money. The long-term results hopefully should be more beneficial. For airlines such as JetBlue, the last 12 to 24 months have presented operational challenges. Smaller companies which are not part of the big three have been definitely definitely having a more difficult time amid such economic uncertainty. JetBlue also still recovering from the cancelled mergers with Spirit Airlines, which has now left the latter, as we know, fighting for bankruptcy for the second time in a row. What JetBlue is attempting to do is avoid that happening to its own business. Now it is refocusing on profitable markets, and as a result, cancelling routes that have been making losses for some time. With the Embraer departure, now the fleet sits at just over 250 aircraft, and the full conversion to Airbus planes also more than present. Over to the final story, where it's the end of an era. Lufthansa operating its last A340-600 flight to Hong Kong towards the back end of October after many years of service. The flight, operating as LH796 from Frankfurt, has been long flown by Lufthansa's 340-600, but now will be replaced with the twin-engine and vastly more efficient A350-900. For Lufthansa, the transition of aircraft types operating on this route marks really the end of an era, as the company seeks to consolidate its ops and move towards more efficient planes. D-AIHX operated the final flight. The aircraft first delivered to the German company in February 2009 and therefore sits at around 16.8 years of age at the time of recording. During its history with the company, it spent over 3 years on the ground during the COVID-19 pandemic. Other than that, it has maintained frequent operations. The future of the A340 is rather grim. Lufthansa looking to get rid of the -600 model sooner rather than later, as it moves fully towards a twin-engine operation, at least mostly with the 7478 really the only intended plane that will stick around. As for the A380, the future of this is a little bit more uncertain. You'd put quite a few question marks next to what will play out in the next 5 years for this quad-engine passenger plane. Thank you very much for your support. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow for your next industry recap.
And we'll fly.